So things are crazy again on a Monday. Surprise, surprise, right? We got explosions in Mexico, explosive wins in the Olympics, and explosive stupidity from pundits. Let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome to the Ripple Effect. So the first off, of course, we're going to have to talk about Mexico. Mexico is literally exploding, and I think they're trying to contain some of it right now. But really, what happened was one of the cartel leaders was taken out, and because of that, the cartel itself is trying to create a bunch of terror to basically push back against this idea, to fight push back against them. But there's something to remember in this, is that apparently the cartels are so embedded into the government there, which is why a lot of the pundits out there are calling it a narco state, that their version of the SecDef is so heavily associated with the cartels that the president had to circumvent this person to take out this cartel member, because otherwise they would have leaked it and it wouldn't have happened. Like, that's how crazily in bed they are, even just in the system. And that you can't even just take this person out. It's wild. Well, the cartel boss that they had taken out was also apparently started off as a chief of police, worked his way up the police department, got to become chief of police, and then started his cartel that way, or took over influence of the cartel that way. So you're in a country, or seeing a country where it's just so heavily intertwined, where there is no separation. It's hard to understand what is safe and what is good in that country. And it goes a step further too, because these cartels are also the same people who, by the way, are terrorizing the country right now. Well, as much as they can, right? And when you read the reports on it, it's like the Mexican government repels attack from cartel. Repels attacks. They're like a gang, a cartel. Why would the government allow them to have so much arsenal and so much influence and so much, again, corruption, but that you're having to repel their attacks? It's not like you're not just wiping them off the face of the planet. It tells you a lot about the Mexican government and the authorities there. The corruption runs so incredibly deep. And then you wonder why, when people, especially conservatives, don't like it when people from there are just allowed to flood into our countries. And then additionally, think about this. The cartel members and the cartels themselves are the ones that hold the keys to the border in the United States. So meaning they're the ones that funnel people through. So anyone who's unscrupulous, horrible, these death cult of cartels, all these people are the ones that are holding the keys to let people in and out of America. So that doesn't seem great. And if you're wondering why it is that we care so much about the border, it's because of this kind of stuff. If this is literally just across the pond from us, not even the pond, the river from us, that this is constantly happening, where these people control the system completely. And just for once right now, they get a little bit of pushback and they throw an absolute fit, and they're trying to be terrorists. They're trying to strike terror into everyone so that no one will do this again. And that's what you need to know. That's what we need to take away, all the funding, all the money away from Mexico until they get their stuff in order, until they get this garbage figured out. They need to be all of our tourists, all of our everything. We shouldn't give them a dime in anything until they can get this figured out, root out all the cartels, and put a new government in place that can actually handle themselves. Because otherwise, it's just going to keep failing, and you're going to keep having more and more people that are going to have to. How many people are going to come from this and now be refugees in America because there's a horrible cartel thing happening, which they traffic people too. But you wonder why we don't trust the border. Why we don't trust the people that control the border? Why we think it's not okay for illegal aliens to come over? This tells you a lot. Now, on very exciting news, America destroys Canada on two different fronts. And what's funny, it's just funny to me how crazy the exposing of themselves the Canadians are with justice. They cannot handle this defeat. I remember 4 years ago when we had the Olympics, and it was Canada and America, and Canada beat America. And I was like, okay, makes sense. It's their sport. I get it. Whatever. We lose. It happens. I was disappointed, but it happens. But the Canadians cannot handle it. I was watching video after video after video coming out from these people, and they're like, well, if they had done 5-on-5, then they wouldn't have won. It's because it was 3-on-3, which is unusual, and that's different. But the better team lost. well, then definitionally, they're not the better team. And then another one was, well, it's because their goalie overperformed, which also means they're the better team. Like, I don't understand how they can just disassociate from this, but they are so upset. I mean, so upset. The Canadian tears are hysterical. And I have nothing terribly against the Canadians. Like I said last time when we talked about the curling. I mean, Canada was defeated by Americans in hockey, and they are defeated by a strategically placed camera in curling. I also love the fact that they didn't win gold in curling, but whatever. We don't need to get into that. But it is interesting that immediately we win this, and there's such a great feeling from having beaten them twice. The disappointment settles in. Apparently, the men had invited Kash Patel to come celebrate with them because they had heard he was there. And Kash is no one's favorite right now. He kind of bungled it when it came to the Epstein files, and he's just not doing well. And it changes the whole view of it, too. It makes the thing seem political, and it's not supposed to be political. It's like the same reason why we can root for the Olympic team under Biden, because it doesn't matter who the president or the government is. We actually enjoy seeing our people win in the Olympics. We shouldn't be including politics in it. And the weird thing was, Trump called them, which, again, is normal for the president to call the winning team. But he calls them, and he's like, yeah, and I want to have you, if you guys want to, at the State of the Union. I'm like, what are these young guys going to want to do at the State of the Union? Hey, there they are. Like, I mean, why? Have him to the White House. Have fun with that. Which apparently he's doing that. He's having the ladies team at the White House too, because they both won. So, hey, good for them. Now, about explosive pundits. This is the one I wanted to get into. So Tucker Carlson, who I have a guy who is Tanashi Peters. He's hysterical. He calls him Qatarlson because he's so invested into Qatar, whatever it is. He calls him Qatarlson. But Tucker Carlson had an explosive interview with Ambassador Mike Huckabee. And the reason why it was explosive is because he cannot let his anti-Semitism go. I mean, everything was so anti-Semitic. The situation was anti-Semitic. How, the Jews are trying to get me. And a lot of people were saying he's trying to do a Greta Thunberg kind of moment. It was garbage. It was garbage. Now, the funny part about it is he tried to trick Huckabee into doing like a genetic test, like what, not doing, but agreeing to like that it would be a good idea to have genetic testing to say, well, if they're descendants of Abraham, are the proper Jews or the proper people of the land, then we should do genetic testing. And he thinks he's really smart. He thinks he's outwitted Mike Huckabee because he's like, because then it'd be all the Muslims. It'd be the Muslims that are actually, because, they're from Ishmael, which would prove that they have a right to the land too. And I'm like, you're a Catholic when you think that's a good thing. Doesn't mean that I hate Catholics, but I'm sorry. Catholics are not people of the book. They do not understand even simple lessons sometimes. And I laugh because when I was watching Michael Knowles in his Theological Thursdays, he does sometimes, I guess every week, but he'll do questions, and you just hear these stories that are the questions, and he has no answer for him. He doesn't know because he doesn't know the stories of the Bible. But he knows, Thomas Aquinas or Tertullian or somebody else. He knows all these people, but doesn't know the actual stories from the Bible. So he doesn't realize that God clearly rejects Ishmael for Isaac. And in fact, tells him to get rid of Ishmael and send him away with Hagar before Isaac is perfectly selected as the son, because he didn't want them around. And in fact, he agrees with Sarai when Sarah decides that he's going to, once him gone, once Hagar to take him and leave, that he says, this is of me. Let him go. It's fine. I'll make a good nation of him and it'll be fine. And unfortunately, that error on Abraham's part, which that was funny too, Tucker Carlson was trying to be like, well, the promise that was delivered to him when he was Abram, when he had his first son, which was Abram, before he was called Abraham. I'm like, oh my word. You think you're so smart and so intelligent, except God clearly lays out the lineage through Isaac, Jacob, and so on. And he not only doesn't just stop there with just Abraham and saying, oh yeah, well, it just kind of is understood to go to Isaac. No, he continues to pass it along, even to the point where Jacob, on his way away from Isaac, when he's running away from Esau because he took the blessing, he literally has the moment where the covenant is given to him as he's sleeping on the ground, and we have the Jacob's ladder moment, right, where the covenant is re-expressed, and the covenant is re-expressed, and the covenant is re-expressed. That never happens with Ishmael. Ishmael goes off and he creates the worst religion that the world has ever seen, the most destruction that the world has ever seen at the hands of that person and his descendants. And you say, how can someone like Tucker Carlson, who claims to be a Christian, he's Catholic, but he claims to be a Christian, how can he not see that? Because they don't understand it. And what's funny is, I was looking at it because there's a sentiment amongst all the Catholic pundits out there. And when you look at what they have to say, they're very, very much anti-Semitic compared to, like other pundits when it comes to Jews. And I was looking at it, so I looked it up and I said, why is it that Catholics are more against Jews than other Christians? Because, Christians, we as a belief, as a faith, believe that the Jews are extremely important, that God has given the covenant to them, and then the church came along, but God still has a special place for all the Jews, and that we are to protect them because of that. We could go into it, it's very deep, very deep. But the point is, because of that, most Christians, like Mike Huckabee and all these other people, we understand the value of what they are, but the Catholics don't. They almost forget it's like a castaway, like they're gone with. And what's funny is when I asked the question of Perplexity did not like the answer. They said the premise is off, right? And they said that the Catholic Church rejects anti-Semitism. But then it laid out the actual history, and it was just interesting. It says they were so negative against the Jews that after the Holocaust, it's got a citation. It's got 3 citations for this statement, meaning that it comes from sources. After the Holocaust, Catholic leaders re-examined how for centuries of Christian anti-Jewish theology, by Christian they mean Catholic, because they lay out the fact that this is what they're talking about, is how Catholicism held Europe for such a long time. That for centuries, the centuries of Christian anti-Jewish theology and preaching had helped create a climate where Nazi anti-Semitism could flourish. And you say, well, Caleb, what are you saying? What are you saying? How can you say that the Catholics are so horrible and that they created that environment? Well, there's obviously sources for it, but that's not even my point. The point that I want to make behind that is this. If you were to look at Michael Knowles, he's wishy-washy when it comes to Jews. Weak at best. Matt Walsh, even less so. Megyn Kelly basically opens anti-Semitic many times in her life. Tucker Carlson, openly anti-Semitic many times. Nick Fuentes, an avowed Catholic, also anti-Semitic. And you can go down the line, and that's just to name a few. There are more and more and more, and all of them that are Catholic specifically. And then you can start comparing and say, okay, well, there are some people that are Baptist. What about Allie Beth Stuckey? Now, I understand she's Reformed, but she is openly not anti-Semitic. Charlie Kirk, openly not anti-Semitic. Oh, that was another one too. So, when I say Charlie Kirk, immediately your brain has to go to Candace Owens, openly anti-Semitic. So all the people that claim to be Catholic are openly anti-Semitic, or at least hinting on the edge, like dancing on the cusp of that. It leads to this kind of problem where they can't even understand a story, like Tucker Carlson cannot understand a story from the Bible where Ishmael is not given the land of Israel. And he thinks that he's got some kind of own by saying, well, if we do genetic testing, then we'll find out that the real descendants of Abram, before he was given Abraham as his name, that's who should own the land of Israel. So smart. And I'll leave you with 2 things before we go for fun. One is our favorite mayor. Our favorite mayor, the mayor of New York, has decided that snow shovelers, when applying for a job, should have 2 forms of ID. Because, of course, that's much more important to shovel snow than to vote. Because there's no corruption in voting whatsoever. But in snow shoveling, have you seen the corruption? Oh my word! We can't just have people showing up without proper ID for snow shoveling. How dare we? That's how ridiculous they are. And then on the final one, I thought this one was good. I'll read you the headline. You ready for this? Here we go. It says, ICE arrests Liberian illegal alien who was AWOL from the PA National Guard while serving as a cop in Minnesota. So apparently he's an illegal alien, ends up in the National Guard, ends up being a corrections officer in Minnesota while being in the country illegally, and he allegedly committed marriage fraud as well. How How? Again, this is why we need to have a voter ID, and we need to have ID in most things, because apparently you can do all that, but don't you dare try to shovel snow. We'll get you if you try to shovel snow. I'm out. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.